The United States and Canada share the longest undefended border in the world, 5,000 miles of open frontier between two allied nations. But between 1930 and 1939, locked inside a classified government vault, there existed a detailed military plan to invade Canada and annex it by force, complete with 3 invasion fronts, poison gas strategies, and a timetable for seizing Canadian cities before British reinforcements could arrive. This is War Plan Red, and almost nobody knows it existed. Welcome to Decoding History. To understand where we are going, we must first uncover where we've been.
You've heard the story. Now hear what actually happened.
1927, Geneva, Switzerland. The world's major naval powers sit down to negotiate limits on warship construction after the devastation of World War I. The conference collapses. No agreement is reached, and the United States military, watching Britain maintain the world's most powerful navy, begins asking an uncomfortable question. What happens if Britain decides to use its naval superiority against American economic interests? And more critically, what is the closest British territory to American soil? Canada, a British dominion, sharing 5,000 miles of border with the United States, full of strategic ports, railways, and resources that Britain could use to strike American territory. This is the declassified cover of the Joint Army and Navy Basic War Plan, Red, approved on May 6, 1930. Joint Board 325, Serial 435. Its informal name, War Plan Red. History doesn't lie. People do. The plan is approved by the Secretary of War and the Secretary of the Navy. A contingency waiting for a war that fortunately never came. War Plan Red was not unique. War Plan Orange for Japan, War Plan Black for Germany. Red was for Britain, and by extension, Canada. Red, referred to the British Empire, was the color used to mark British territory on most world maps. Was coded crimson. The United States was blue. Planners identified it as Britain's gateway into North America. Take Halifax, and British reinforcements could not land. War Plan Red called for a simultaneous 3-front invasion. The goal? Overwhelm Canadian defenses before Britain could send naval reinforcements across the Atlantic. Front 1. From Vermont, U.S. forces would push north to capture Montreal and Quebec City, cutting Canada's most populated corridor and severing the St. Lawrence River supply line. Front 2. From North Dakota, forces would push north to seize Winnipeg, the critical railway hub connecting eastern and western Canada. Cut Winnipeg, and Canada splits in half. Front 3. From the Midwest, forces would strike into Ontario to seize the strategic nickel mines, control the nickel, control the war industry. At the same time, a joint Army-Navy force would seize Halifax from the sea, denying Britain its key landing port, the plan's most vital objective. One of targets, the Canadian power plants at Niagara Falls. American planners wanted to seize them early, cutting electricity to Canadian industry and leaving cities in the dark. Most disturbing was that War Plan Red included using chemical weapons, mustard gas and phosgene, against Canadian targets, despite their devastating toll in World War I. The same chemical weapons that devastated the trenches of World War I were planned for use against Canada, America's closest ally and wartime partner. The plan covered the construction of 3 military airfields in the northern United States under the cover of civilian airports, positioned specifically for bombing runs into Canadian territory. Congress approved funding for these civilian airfields in 1935. They were built. They existed. Canada was not entirely unaware. 9 years before War Plan Red was finalized, Canadian military planners had developed their own preemptive strike plan against American cities. Defense Scheme Number 1 was created on April 12, 1921, a surprise invasion of the northern United States. Canadian Defense Scheme Number 1, immediate attacks on Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis, and Albany, to buy time for British reinforcements to arrive.
So let's be clear. Two friendly neighbors sharing the borders were simultaneously planning to invade each other with poison gas. Now let's talk about what stopped it.
Through the mid-1930s, Anglo-American relations begin improving dramatically. Trade agreements and diplomatic exchanges, these actions begin pulling the two nations closer together. 1933, a new government rises to power in Germany. By 1935, German rearmament is accelerating rapidly. Fighting Britain suddenly seems catastrophically misguided. War Plan Red is updated in 1934 and 1935, cancelled but revised. The scenarios become less urgent as British-American cooperation deepens. September 1939, Germany invades Poland. Britain declares war. The United States and Britain are no longer potential enemies. War Plan Red becomes unthinkable. In 1939, the Joint Board officially decides no further action on War Plan Red, classified, and completely forgotten. For 35 years, War Plan Red waits. The US and Canada become the closest NATO allies, and somewhere, the invasion plan waits. 1974. As part of a routine declassification review, War Plan Red surfaces. The documents are released to the public, and the story breaks.
Canadian newspapers run the story on their front pages. Both governments issue careful statements. Routine contingency exercise, no actual intentions. A diplomatic dance performed in public.
Canada's reaction was notably restrained. The general response? Of course America had a plan. America has a plan for everything, which is, historically speaking, not entirely wrong. War Plan Red was not unusual. Britain had plans for war against the United States. Germany planned to invade Switzerland. Military planning is not the same as military intention. War Plan Red was an extraordinary detailed operation. Specific city-by-city capture sequences, troop numbers, named infrastructure targets, chemical weapon deployment zones. Those three secret airfields, authorized as civilian airports in 1935, were constructed and exist to this day. Which raises the question historians still debate. Was War Plan Red really just a training exercise? Or do the secret airports, the gas provisions, and the congressional funding suggest something more?
Honest answer? Probably both. Contingency plans need specifics to work, but secret airports aren't just planning, they're preparation. And that changes everything.
War Plan Red reveals something official histories smooth over. In the early 20th century, the United States and Britain were genuine economic rivals. They were not just allies. The War Department's own documents stated, the most likely cause of conflict would be American economic expansion into regions previously controlled by the British Empire. War Plan Red reminds us, in international relations, there are no permanent alliances, only permanent interests, even between the closest of friends. For Canada, the lessons still resonate. A country of 10 million sharing a border with one of 120 million lives, a powerful neighbor can make your life very difficult. Historians argue that awareness of plans like War Plan Red contributed to Canada's instinct to maintain strong British ties in the 1930s, precisely as a counterweight to American power. The things that were said that meeting are a total mystery. The final irony. The economic rivalries that motivated War Plan Red were resolved through negotiation. The 1935 trade agreement made the economic case for conflict disappear entirely. When you read the actual document, what strikes historians is not the aggression but the professionalism, which somehow makes it more unsettling, not less. Today, the United States and Canada are each other's largest trading partners. Nearly 2 million people cross the border every single week. Military planners in every major country continue developing contingency scenarios that would never normally occur. Planning for the unthinkable is not aggression, it is their job. A contingency plan, filed away for 44 years. Even between the best of friends, someone is always thinking about the worst.
The longest undefended border in the world, 5,000 miles of open frontier, and underneath it, buried for 44 years, a detailed plan to turn it into a war zone. War Plan Red was never used. Canada was never invaded. The airports were quietly repurposed. Both nations built one of the most successful bilateral relationships in modern history.
But the plan existed. It was real, it was detailed, and it was classified longer than most people are alive. That is the thing about history.
The version that gets taught and the version that actually happened are not always the same. That gap is where this channel lives.
If this is the kind of story that makes you question what else you were never told, subscribe, because next week we have another one, and the week after that. There is more. We must strike their vital ports immediately. Halifax is the key. 1.
Canada's code name in War Plan Red was Crimson, after its red color on British maps. The U.S. planned to invade a nation defined by a color.
2.
1974, when War Plan Red was declassified, historians discovered all 3 airfields in the plan had been built exactly where it predicted, and they were still in operation.
3.
Canada's Defense Scheme No. 1 planned bombing routes over Seattle, Portland, and Minneapolis. Canadian officers secretly scouted U.S. cities. The public never knew.
4.
Mustard gas already killed 12 Canadians at Ypres in 1917. The U.S. planned to use it against those survivors' country 13 years later.
5.
Only one nation never appeared in any American war plan between 1920 and 1945: Switzerland.
So that's all I got for today, guys. See you in the next episode.